Hello, good morning, and happy Pesach. Today is the 6th day of Pesach. It's a Sunday morning, and it's the 20th of Nisan, the 20th of April. And we will be continuing with our studies in the book of Full Devotion. And good morning to everybody here. And we're having some hot matzah and butter. Those who are not here, well, you missed it. Next year, there won't be a Sunday of Pesach. There will be a Sunday, but it will be the holiday still. So we're holding on page 59, and the Rebbe has discussed the idea of giving birth, but in a Kabbalistic or mystical term. Giving birth means when a person thinks, uses his wisdom, his or her wisdom and understanding, which is compared to a male and a female, because wisdom is a little flash and understanding is expansion and growth. So when a person uses his or her intelligence, that should produce inspiration in the heart, should produce midot or characteristics. So that's like giving birth. So when the Torah says there won't be any barren women, akara, and there won't be any miscarriage, it means that first of all there has to be a connection between the intelligence and the characteristics. That means your heart should be dictated by your intelligence. Secondly, it also means that even once you've produced these ideas and your heart is now with you, you still must make sure there's no miscarriage. In other words, that it goes through and everything happens properly. That's basically the idea. Okay? 59. Spiritual contentment. It is also important for one to find a way not to become content with one's avoda, with one's service. Look at footnote 104. When a person is satisfied with his current state, he loses his ambition to invest effort and apply himself to furthering his current state, as will be explained below. When a person says, "Oh, I've arrived, I'm all happy," then it's good to say that when we are in our physical lives. It's the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says that Ezehu Ashir, who is wealthy, Hasameach bechelko. If you are satisfied with your lot, you have what you need, you should be. That's a wealthy person, because if a person has a millionaire and he can't stop, then he's never happy. He's always looking for more. So that person is never. He's never happy. He's always challenging himself to do more. So, how much is enough? And whatever he gets to, he still wants more. He can't stop. That's not a happy person. It's not a wealthy person. Wealth means that the person is content. He's happy. He's satisfied. But with spiritual service to Hashem, that's just the opposite. You should never be satisfied, because there's always room to grow. And room to grow means that you become a better person, you become a more godly person, you become a more holy person, you become a more helpful person in the world, more productive person. So it's important for one to find a way not to become content with one's avodah, with one's service. This applies even when one serves God in a suitable manner. That means you're serving God properly, with both intellect comprehension and emotions of the heart that are revealed within his heart. That means he feels it, he knows it's there, and he feels it. And which are not merely false impressions, but true love and awe that are recognizable through his adherence to Torah and mitzvahs. That it's recognizable now, and he feels it, that he loves God, and he is in awe of God, and he does everything properly. Even that kind of a person should never say, "All right, I'm here, I've arrived, I'm good now, I'm good to go." You can't be good to go in a spiritual world. So you have a person who keeps Shabbos and keeps kosher and puts on tefillin and does everything right. And not only he does it, but he feels it, he's into it. And he's helping others. So a person has arrived, he's there. Now, in addition to actually observing Torah and mitzvot, he is also aware of the meaning of the mitzvot and is even aware of the divine revelations that the performance of mitzvot elicit, that they bring. So you're not just doing the mitzvah, eating the matzah. You're thinking about the matzah. You know what it is, what it does, what it draws down from heaven. And you perform the mitzvah this way. For example, giving charity elicits a spiritual revelation in the path of chesed, or loving kindness. So when a person gives tzedakah, when a person gives kindness, that person is being kind to someone else, someone outside of them. That draws down from God an extra added measure and dose of loving kindness. That's the thought that a person should have. I give kindness. When I give kindness, I draw down to the world a light and an energy from God that hopefully I'll have a part of it, and hopefully everybody will enjoy it. That's what the mitzvah of tzedakah draws from God. So you are focused on that when you give your tzedakah. Or serving God in matters of discipline, like, I don't eat not kosher, or I don't do things that I shouldn't do on Shabbos, or discipline yourself, not doing certain things. As exemplified by the verse, you have made judgment in Jacob, mishpat b'Yaakov, judgment in Jacob. Elicits a spiritual revelation in the path of gevura, of discipline. That means it draws down from God added discipline to this world. Added discipline to this world. So what would added discipline to this world mean? That he shouldn't do anything which is bad, or it's disciplining himself, if you will.
Gevura?
Gevura. Gevura means strength or might.
Oh.
Like gibor means a strong person. Gevura means strong, and Gevura is the second of the 7 emotions or characteristics. The first one is chesed, which is kindness. Second one is Gevura, which means strength. Strength means discipline. The most difficult thing a person has is the strength that requires great strength is to discipline.
Discipline.
Yes. Now, so, to keep Shabbos, it's a discipline. You can get used to it, but it's still a discipline. Your whole Friday works different because you have a Shabbos coming. Your whole Saturday is different because it's Saturday, it's Shabbos or something. Keeping kosher, it's a discipline. Not to, when you really want something and you can't eat it, or it's Pesach. All you can eat is these dry crackers. Some people don't know how to control themselves because it takes discipline. Discipline takes strength. It's the most difficult thing for a person to do. Ezehu Gibor, the same Pirkei Avot who talks about the wealthy person, says, who is strong? Who is mighty? Hakovesh et yitzro, someone who is able to conquer his inclination. He wants to do something and he can't do it. You're disciplining yourself not to do it. Morning. Join the crowd. See if you can find a seat. So the discipline is the most difficult. You can open it. You can open this one. Yeah. Discipline, if you could open it. So discipline is the most difficult thing for a person. It requires great strength. It's also like this in the physical world. We have to discipline our children. It takes strength to do it properly. We shouldn't eat what we shouldn't eat. That's a discipline. Everything's a discipline, and that takes gevura, it takes strength. Torah study, which is the middle path, elicits a revelation that is likewise in the middle path. Okay, so we're going to read now footnote 105 and footnote 106. Zalman, take them away from you. Here, 105. Judgment in Jacob refers to the laws of Torah that guide Jacob. You have made, that means you have made the judgment, emphasizes that God established these laws. See Mitzudat David on the verse. In particular, this verse refers to restricting one's involvement in prohibited, unholy, and superfluous activities. Hold on a second. First ask, who is this for? Okay, first ask Mendel or Moshe if they're allowed to have it. All evil receives nurture from Gevura. You hear this? Gevura means strength. Strength is a very good thing to have. But the problem with strength is that it could lead to unholy, ungood things. Because sometimes Gevura is the opposite is withholding. When you withhold something, you have to be nasty sometimes, and sometimes you have to be more than nasty. You have to be very, very strong not to give in. Sometimes for a good reason. Sometimes strength can be abused. It can be used for the wrong reasons. So all evil receives nurture from Gevura, the supernal aspect of discipline. So evil receives its strength from Gevura, from the good side. Since only by limiting the infinite can there be room for any opposition. See, when you say God is coming to this world, but God is... When you say God is coming to this world, you have a very powerful revelation of godliness that's on its way to this world. How do you get God into a limited world? Well, it takes Gevura. It takes this discipline, limiting. So the discipline limits things. So therefore, when God is not so strong and powerful, then unholy matter can also come and be part of it, because now there's room. When God fills everything obviously and clearly, then nobody will do anything wrong. Nobody will do anything bad. There wouldn't be any evil here. Now that God is very limited over here, and you can hardly see him, well, there's plenty of evil. So as a result of Gevura, of discipline, of closing up, what do? You get problems, you get trouble. Because you've created a vacuum, you've created an empty space. See, again, all evil receives nurture from Gevura, which is the supernal aspect of discipline. Since only by limiting the infinite can there be room for any opposition. When you limit what is unlimited, and you limit that, well, then opposition can come in. Plenty of room. Serving God by way of restriction elicits Gevura. When you say, I don't want to eat this because it's Pesach, I don't want to eat this because it's not kosher, I don't want to do this because it's Shabbos. When you do that, it brings out Gevura and ensures that it is not channeled to nurture evil, but rather that its restrictive nature works to exclude evil. So you can have Gevura, you can have this discipline, and you can draw it down to this world, and then it's Tagboret HaChayot, which is the strengthening of the energy, stronger energy. That's Gevura. Because Gevura can lead to unholiness. That's footnote number 105. 106. The three paths. In Kabbalah, a path, or kav in Hebrew, refers to the direction of divine influx, divine energy, as it is channeled through the spiritual worlds. That is what is used. The kav, the term kav, a path, is used how God's energy comes into this world. The midot, or divine emotive attributes, are divided into three paths. The path on the right is the path of chesed, which is kindness, of course, which includes the midot of chesed and netzach, or loving kindness and endurance. Endurance, when you stay forever and you endure, that means you continue to flow. Like it's just a flow of, like kindness just continues on. It's a flow. Any flow that is continuous is a flow of chesed. So netzach, which means endurance, also comes from that side, from the right side, from the side of giving, the side of being there, just nonstop, like the flow. The left path is the path of Gevura. Gevura, of course, means, as we said before, discipline or might, which includes the midot of Gevura and Hod, discipline and glory. Actually, Hod, in this case, should be translated as Hoda'ah, or humility. That is the same idea as discipline. In order for a person to be humble, for a person to be an anav, a person has to be very disciplined, because we always tend to want to glorify ourselves and show how great we are. Okay, the middle path is the path of Tiferet, which includes the midot of Tiferet, Yesod, and Malchus. What are those midot? Harmony, bonding, and sovereignty. Harmony means where you bring together two sides and you live in harmony. So it's a middle ground. The same thing with bonding. You bond two things together. It's a middle ground. And sovereignty is where a person takes control. Basically, now he has the right and the left. He's not taking control of both sides. Again, coming together. So on the right side, you have kindness, which is a flow. You have endurance, which is also continuation. Same idea as a flow. On the left side, you have discipline, which is on the left. And you also have humility on the left. And in the middle, you have harmony, you have bonding, and you have sovereignty. Those are the 7 characteristics that we have, good characteristics. The good ones are kindness and endurance on the right side, discipline and humility on the left side, and down the middle you have harmony, or that would be compassion, rachamim, rachmanut, and you have bonding, where you can bond with something, where you can actually carry it out, do it. You bond to an idea, you bond to a concept, you bond the concept to the action of doing it, and finally you have sovereignty, which means you have control of all 7. Okay. Torah relates to the middle path, the path of harmony and truth, as explained in footnote 57. So a person who is performing all of these mitzvot knows that by performing the mitzvot, one receives great divine energy, or one draws great divine energy into this world. So you have a loving kindness energy that comes to this world, a chesed that comes to this world, or a discipline not in a bad way, but to bring down extra added a measure of energy. Or when a person learns Torah, he knows he's bringing truth into this world and harmony, peace into this world. Those are all things that a person has in mind when performing the mitzvot. Okay, page 60 now. He may even have reached the point where his service of God fulfills the level that is alluded to in the specific wording of the verse, and you shall serve Havaya, your Elohim. When the verse, which is the verse is on this discourse is based on this verse, it says, and you shall serve Hashem Elohim. Now, the word Hashem, the name of Hashem, Havaya, is the infinite level of God. Why? Because the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey of God's name, it includes the word Haya, Hey Yud Hey, Hoveh, Hey Vav Hey, and Yihiyeh, Yud Hey Yud Hey. Haya, Hoveh, Yihiyeh. Those 3 Hebrew words mean Haya, he was, Hoveh, he is, Yihiyeh, he will be. He was, he is, and he will be, all in the same name, which obviously is the infinite level of God.
He.
Say that again.
He.
In the last one. Yihiyeh.
Oh,
Yihiyeh. Yihiyeh.
Okay.
You got 2 years, 2 years, and then one of her. Yihiyeh. Yihiyeh.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right.
So you've got all 3 in this name of God. You have all 3 things, past, present, and future. That's impossible for a human being. You can't be in the past and in the present and in the future at the same time. In this world, it doesn't work that way. But in God's world, that is His world. He is everywhere all the time. To Him, there is no past, there's no time. So there's no past, there's no present, and future. It's all the same. Now, it's impossible for us to understand that because we don't live in that kind of world. We are not living in that world. We are living in a world where time is important and space is important. But when time doesn't exist, space doesn't exist, it's not relevant, past, present, and future. So He's all the same. He never changes. That's the name of God that is used in the Torah. It says, you shall serve the Lord That's Havaya, Haya, all those past, present, future, infinite level of God. Elokim. You serve the God who is Elokim. What's Elokim? Elokim is the opposite of that. The name Elokim of God is the name that restricts godliness. How do we know this? Because the word Elokim is not just used for God, but it's also used for other. It's used to describe, for example, it's used to in the Torah to describe a court system. And so the court system is called Elokim, like God. Why? Because that name is a name of discipline. And so it's restricting. In the Tehillim, in the Psalms, number 84, it says that the sun and its sheath is like Hashem Elokim. Elokim being the sheath over the sun. That which protects the sun, that it shouldn't, there's all these rays that everybody's complaining about, that's being destroyed, the ozone layer and all that. Those are things that cover the sun, that shield the sun from being too strong in this world, being too powerful. Similarly, the name Elokim takes God's name of Havaya, of Yud, Haya, Hove, Me'iyah, and it limits it. The funny thing is that the name Elokim in Hebrew has the same gematria, has the same numerical equivalence as the word Hateva, the nature. So the nature is Elokim, and that blocks the sun-like level of Yahya Hove B'Yiyah, God's great name, the ineffable name. So that can reach a point where a person reaches this level. What's this level? Let's see here. That as a result of your serving God, the name Havaya, representing past, present, and future as one, and at an even higher level, the aspect of Havaya as it transcends Hishtalshalut, as it's higher than any kind of form of continuation. It's completely removed from this world. That level of God's name becomes your Elokim, becomes your energy and life force. That person can achieve a level, such greatness, that one is able to draw that infinite energy of godliness into his or her personal life. And you're talking about a real holy person, a person who has accomplished, a person who has arrived, a person who has now realized and become connected to godliness. Now let's look at footnote 107. Havaya becomes your Elokim. God's name, Havaya, which is in footnote 45, we just explained that before, represents godliness as it transcends the worlds. This is indicated in the word Havaya, an acronym for the words Haya, here it is in English, past, Hoveh, present, and Yihiyeh, future. In other words, Havaya is a state of godliness that transcends the worldly divisions of time. There is no time only outside of this world. And that name of God is that kind of name which represents above time. Chassidus teaches that from the perspective of Havaya, from that perspective, from the name of God that's transcendent, the world is not considered an entity. And it is as if it does not exist, because the world is so restricted and so limited. It's, would we be worried and concerned about the world of worms stuck in the earth? Well, unless you're a scientist or something, it's not relevant to us and to our lives. Don't think about that. The service of God to become aware of godliness and to awaken an emotional love and awe is meant to be done to the degree that Havaya becomes your Elokim. When you want to really, when you get to the point of serving God on the highest level, it's making that level, to which the world is sort of irrelevant, that becomes your energy, that becomes your focus, where worldliness doesn't matter to you. That's these righteous, holy people. They don't think about the world and what the world can do for you and how much food they can eat and how many cars they can drive. It's totally irrelevant to them. World doesn't matter. Worldliness doesn't matter to them. They're not eating food because they, enjoy the steak and everything. They just eat food because they need to subsist. They need to exist. Nothing more than that. Literally, Elokim means mighty ones, connoting strength and energy and power. Elokim is the name of God that represents his appearance within nature and corporeality. In other words, God is in this world, but hidden in this world. So it's covered by nature, it's covered by worldliness. So you can say, oh, my God is my car. My God is my money. My God is my food. People say that all the time. My God is my ball game. My God is my life. My God is my wife. My God is my this. And they get bogged down and stuck in worldliness, and they don't see that these are only tools to help you get. I say, when they say, what kind of car would you like to drive? I would say the one that works, one that moves. What difference does it make? It's taking you from one place to another place. Okay, so I'd like it to be smoother. I get that. With some more gadgets inside, so it can help enhance my ride. But this type of car with this type of this and this type of color, who cares? That's totally irrelevant. It doesn't make any difference in my life. It's a wagon moving you from one place to another place. It's a transportation mode. That's really all it is. So if you say, I want to sit in first class when I fly to Johannesburg, because it's an 18-hour flight, and I can sleep, and I can eat, and I can read, and I can spread myself out, I get it. But if you have to go on a blue plane instead of a red plane, then what's wrong with you? The same thing with the car. What's the matter with you? These people have to have all these cars. But why? Because they're so obsessed with the car. The cars become their obsession instead of what the car is supposed to do, which is transport you from one place to another place. That's really all it is, wheels. Somebody said, if you won the lottery, what kind of car would I buy? If I won the lottery, first of all, I'd buy a car that works, and a car that fits my family. But I'd buy a Lincoln Continental. Why? Because I've driven a few times Lincoln Continental, and they're very, very smooth. I appreciate smooth cars. That's how it was. Last time I was in a Lincoln Continental must have been about 30. Most of I drove it must have been about 30 years ago. And it was smooth then. So that's the car that I like. Not because it looks nice, not because it feels nice, not because it's simply because it's nice. It's a nicer ride. So it doesn't bump me around. I can be fresh when I get back home. I don't have to bump over bumps. And if that's not the smoothest car, then I'm moving to the smoothest car. I don't care what it is. That's the point. Why we're worried about cars or about houses, and about all of these things are not relevant. The house has to be big enough to fit your family and big enough to fit your community with God's help. So we have to find a big house in Peachtree City with a big kitchen so we can make lots of food and have lots of people here, which is what we do. We have lots of families here, and lots of people here, and that's why we have this house. There are people that come in and say, oh, we got somebody came on Friday night, never been here. Says, hey, cavernous home. I said, we have a cavernous home because we have a lot of people here. We have a lot of people to fill the cave. That's what it is. And that's the obsession that people have. Same thing with food, and the same thing with everything. People get so clogged up in the food. It's a mitzvah to eat on Shabbos. It says so in the Talmud. It says so in Jewish law. It's a mitzvah to eat on Shabbos. And it's not a mitzvah to eat any other day, although it's not a sin if you're eating kosher food, but it's a mitzvah. On Shabbos, it's a mitzvah. So we have enhanced food, enhanced meals. It's a bigger time for eating, because even physical is in a different state that on Shabbos is elevated. So the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, he went one day to his students and he said, I want to show you something. And he said, come closer. And I want everybody to put their arms around each other, so they all had this circle. And then he put his arms around the closest two to complete the circle. And all of a sudden, they saw that the guy who was standing in the shul a few minutes ago with a big fur hat on his head for Shabbos. He was wearing all the Shabbos clothing. He actually transformed, that person was transformed in this vision that they were having into an ox, a bull, an ox, a bull who was wearing a shtreimel, who was wearing this big fur hat. Then the Baal Shem Tov said, he explained, he said, this person is so obsessed with his meat that he's eating on Shabbos. All he's thinking about is the meat, that his personality has turned into a bull. Because he's obsessed with the bull. He's not thinking about, oh, it's Shabbos today, let me enhance my Shabbos experience. He's saying, it's Shabbos today, let me eat some more meat. When you eat more meat, you become meat. Not to become meat, but he was showing his students, he was trying to show that a person's obsession on a day like Shabbos should not be in the food, but it should be in how the food can enhance the Shabbos, not how Shabbos enhances the food. So people who become very obsessed with God, with worldliness, lose out on the focus on what they're supposed to have, which is what holy people have. And that is, worldliness is irrelevant. All I need from world is to get me from one place to another place. All I need from world is to eat so I can survive. These are people who made Havaya into Elokim. They've taken the infinite level of godliness and made it their own. Now they feel that they're above the world. They feel that the world shouldn't get in the way of serving God, of learning, of studying and performance of Torah and Mitzvah. Therefore, in the middle of the paragraph, which on the footnote, which begins with the words comes your Elohim. So in the middle over there it says, therefore, serving God to the degree that Havaya becomes your Elohim means to instill an awareness of God's transcendence and the negligibility of worldliness, of the irrelevance of worldliness, into one's mind and heart to the point that he knows God is his reality, it's his energy, and his life force. That's the person who has reached such a high level, a high degree.
Well, you're saying you are what you think.
You are what you obsess with.
Obsessed with.
Yes. When you get so obsessed with something, it gets in the way of reality. So when you're obsessed, let's say, with football or basketball, your whole day, all you think about is the game and the game and the game. And you can't even think straight because you're so obsessed with that. And eventually you turn into a basketball. That's the point. You become that which you're obsessed with. And, people get paid a lot of money to play the game. People get paid a lot of money to cover these games because people are obsessed with them. Because there is an obsession with them. But they're games. There's no reality there. There's no reality in it. Now, my grandfather, may he rest in peace, told me the last time I visited him, he was in his late 80s, and he was 6 months away from his passing, and I came to visit him, and he said, "Excuse me, but the football game is starting." He was in England. The soccer game is starting. Manchester United was his team. He lived in Manchester, and he was ready to turn on the television. I said to him, "Soccer is just. I have nothing to do with soccer whatsoever. I don't understand how a game can end in 0-0, and Anyway, but he said, I said, "What happens if your team wins?" He says, "It gives me gesund. It gives me health." No, what he meant was that it makes him feel good. It's an uplifting feeling. And when your team loses, it's a down. But it's not. My grandfather was about as real and down-to-earth person as I have ever met. He wasn't obsessed with it. It was one day in the week for 2 hours to watch the game, and the outcome of the game had an effect on him for about 3 minutes. In other words, it made him feel better, or it made him feel more down. That's not being obsessed with it. With watching a game once a week or once a day or whatever it is, for a certain amount of time. That's not being obsessed. Obsessed means what happened and who did it and how did it and what's the stats and how this person will continue.
For hours and hours and hours.
Days and days and buy
But
the
why do
books
you-
and go on the
why do you-
radio and,
Travel to Israel, to Caesarea, like example.
to Caesarea,
Yeah, you see the games, the amphitheater,
stadiums.
stadium. The Greek or the Roman use the game because they're boring. I mean, to fight with animal because they didn't have nothing to do. So I don't know if this is equivalent to
I
what
say-
we do today. But
I say if sports makes people move their minds away from boredom and anti-Semitism or whatever, there should be more sports in
Okay.
Ukraine, and more sports in the Arab world. Let them focus on that and let them
not
let them
focus
have
up.
let them leave the Jews alone. I'm happy that there is that out there to people to
Fight each other,
to
not
be
against
obsessed
us.
with. Yeah. Anyway. So back to over here. Stunted progress. So even when a person has attained, that's page 60, stunted progress. Even when a person has attained this state of spiritual elevation, you can pull off this sheet and put it there. Spiritual elevation, he should be mindful not to become satisfied with the service of God. You're talking about a person who's like a holy man, holy woman. No, don't be satisfied. For then he is arrested by his current state and does not continue to progress in the service of God. In addition to the possibility that the feeling of satisfaction could stunt the continuity of his existing love and awe that are already born and revealed, the concept of miscarriage. In other words, it could stop whatever he has already thought about and able to produce, while engaging in divine service with love and awe, his service remains limited and confined to what is required for his satisfaction. In other words, he's satisfied, and therefore he stops where he is. One of the things about the Rebbe, he never stopped. He always had new ideas, go and do this, go and do that. He was comic, move and grow, and then it was never, ever, ever enough. When you came to the Rebbe and you said, I'm about to donate $1 million, so depending who it was, but if even the most, the person you were just starting with, the Rebbe would say, that's a good start. He would never say, wow, thank you. Never did that. When you told the Rebbe that you had 500 people at your Seder, he would say, are there only 500 Jews where you live? I believe there are more. Where were they?
That's the leader.
Huh?
That's the
There's
leader.
non-stop. He never said great. Occasionally he said thank you for bringing me the good news, and I hope you continue to bring me even better. But he said thank you maybe, but he always said that's a good start. And he never relented. Never, ever, ever, ever relented. Never. In 42 years of leadership, never stopped. That's a person who was never satisfied. Who was never satisfied with the spiritual gains. This is a man that turned the world over like no one in history ever did. Took a Jewish nation that had been torn and broken and burnt and gassed and the Holocaust and with an Israel that was barely on its baby feet, and reshaped it and formed it and led it, and guided it. Truly, even those who don't like him, or didn't like Kabbalah, jealous or whatever reason, they ended up emulating, copying him. They all ended up doing what he started to do. And he's very happy that they're doing it because at least someone's doing good work. He never said they shouldn't do it. He was never worried about what other people are doing or not doing. He always said to his followers, go and do. We are workers. Go out and do it. Study, learn, spread the word. Get out there. It's difficult. I know. Go. It's good for you. Good challenge. Get out there. I don't need anyone here. Go. He didn't build a community. He built a world. He didn't build followers. He built leaders. That was a person who was never satisfied. This is what he's saying. In 1952, he's saying it. aspirations. Regarding this, the verse states, none shall miscarry or be barren in your land. Specifically in your land, the word ba'artzecha, in your land. The Hebrew word eretz, or land, is related to the word ratzon, and will. It's the same idea. Ratz and aretz has the same root to it, which means will, a desire. The verse means that the ideal servant does not even feel satisfaction. In other words, the fulfillment of his will from his service of God. He certainly does not feel his own wishes, since that would make him a full vessel that cannot contain. As we discussed in the previous weeks, when you become filled with your own desires, you can't accept anyone else's wishes. In other words, he would have no receptacle, i.e., no womb to receive impregnation at all, the first form of barrenness that was mentioned earlier. So this servant doesn't have his own wishes in it, but more than that, the servant has built their whole house. Now he comes in and says, what else can I do? That's a servant of God. That's a true servant. And we will break over here.
Thank you.